In 1912, a rare book dealer named Wilfred Voynich bought a manuscript from a chest in an Italian castle. And the moment he opened it, he knew something was deeply wrong. Not wrong like a typo. Wrong like reality had quietly bent out of shape. The book was written in a language no one alive had ever seen. Illustrated with plants that don't exist on Earth. Filled with naked women bathing in green pools connected by elaborate biological tubes. And after over 100 years of effort, from codebreakers who cracked Nazi ciphers to AI systems trained on every known script in history, not a single sentence has been translated. Not one word is confirmed. We don't know who wrote it. We don't know what it says. We don't even know if it means anything at all. This is the Voynich Manuscript, the most mysterious book in the world. Let's go back to where the story starts, or at least where we think it starts. The manuscript itself is small, about the size of a modern paperback, 240 pages of vellum. That's animal skin bound together. Carbon dating places its creation somewhere between 1404 and 1438. So we're talking about the early 15th century, the tail end of the medieval period, just decades before Gutenberg's printing press would change everything. Whoever made this did it by hand, carefully, over what must have been a long time. Wilfred Voynich founded in 1912 at the Villa Mondragone near Rome, part of a collection of old manuscripts being sold by the Jesuits to raise money. He was a Polish book dealer based in London, a fascinating figure himself, a former political prisoner who'd escaped from Siberia. And he knew immediately that what he was holding was extraordinary. He spent the rest of his life trying to understand it. He never did. After his death, the manuscript passed to his widow, then to a rare book collector named Hans Kraus, who tried to sell it for $160,000, a massive sum in the 1960s, and found no buyer. Eventually, in 1969, he donated it to Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, where it lives today, cataloged as MS-408. And there it sits, under controlled lighting, in a climate control vault, completely unreadable. Now, here's what makes a Voynich manuscript genuinely unlike anything else that's ever been found. The text itself, whatever it is written left to right, in neat lines, with clear word spacing. That part looks normal. But the script, called Voynichese by researchers, has never been matched to any known writing system, living or dead. It has somewhere between 20 and 30 distinct characters, which is actually a plausible alphabet size. The words follow statistical patterns. Certain characters tend to appear at the start of words, others at the end, which mimics how real languages behave. It's not random noise. But here's where it gets strange. The text is almost no repeated words in close proximity, which is unusual even for natural languages. It has very few words that are 2 characters long. Almost every word is medium length. And some pages are almost entirely text, while others have almost none. There are also words, long, elaborate words, that appear only once in an entire manuscript, which some linguists find deeply suspicious. The illustrations are split into what researchers call sections. There's a botanical section featuring plants, hundreds of them, that don't correspond to any known species. Some look like crude approximations of real plants. Others look like nothing that has ever grown on this planet. There's an astronomical section with circular diagrams, zodiac symbols, and what might be star charts, except the constellations don't quite match any historical system. There's a biological section, the strangest of all, showing small human figures, almost always women, floating in pools and tubes of liquid, connected by elaborate pipe systems, doing something that nobody can explain. There's a pharmaceutical section with jars and containers next to more unidentifiable plants. And there are pages of dense text with no images at all, which some believe might be the actual core of the book, the explanations that make sense of everything else. If this is a hoax, it is the most elaborate, most consistent, most inexplicable hoax in human history. If it's real, we have no idea what reality it belongs to. Over the past century, serious people with serious credentials have put forward serious theories, and almost all of them have eventually collapsed. The dominant assumption for most of the 20th century was encryption. The reasoning made sense. The manuscript was found in Europe in an era when cryptography was a fashionable intellectual hobby. Maybe a Renaissance scholar had encoded something dangerous, heretical ideas, occult secrets, forbidden medicine, in a cipher complex enough to survive persecution. Brilliant codebreakers attacked it. During World War II, American cryptanalysts, people who had cracked access codes, looked at the Voynich Manuscript as a side project. They got nowhere. The NSA has reportedly studied it. A man named William Friedman, who is considered one of the greatest cryptographers in American history, worked on it for years. He believed it was a cipher. He never broke it. The problem is that the statistical properties of the text don't behave like enciphered natural language. Enciphered text tends to preserve certain mathematical fingerprints of the original language. The Voynich text doesn't match those fingerprints for any known language, encrypted or not. Maybe someone invented an entirely new language, a philosophical language, designed from scratch, and this is its only record. In the 16th and 17th centuries, there was genuine intellectual interest in creating perfect languages, free from the ambiguity of Latin or vernacular tongues. This theory is appealing, but constructed languages tend to have awkward, unnatural statistical properties. The Voynich text, despite being alien, flows with surprising naturalness. It almost feels like something a native speaker would write. Then there's the darkest theory. It's a hoax, and has always been a hoax. The most developed version was proposed by Gordon Rugg, a researcher who demonstrated in 2003 that the statistical properties of the Voynich text could be reproduced using a tool called a cardan grill. Essentially a car with holes cut in it, dragged across a table of syllables to generate pseudo-words. There's even a candidate for the con man, Edward Kelly, a notorious Elizabethan forger and occultist. The timing could fit. The motive could fit. But here's the problem with the hoax theory. The level of consistency in the text is extraordinary. Across 240 pages, written presumably over months, the same statistical patterns hold. For a con man making up gibberish, that's almost impossibly disciplined. Some researchers believe the manuscript contains a real human language, possibly a dialect, possibly an indigenous American language encountered early in the age of exploration, written in a phonetic script invented by whoever recorded it. Most recently, artificial intelligence has entered the conversation. Neural networks trained on dozens of ancient scripts have been pointed at the manuscript. They've found patterns. They haven't found meaning. As of today, the Voynich Manuscript remains unread. Here's what I keep coming back to. The thing that makes this genuinely unsettling rather than just academically interesting. We live in an age of extraordinary information recovery. We have decoded Linear B, the ancient Mycenaean script. We have read Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sumerian cuneiform, ancient Mayan glyphs. We have AI systems that can teach themselves grammar from raw text. We have the accumulated cryptographic knowledge of every intelligence agency on Earth. And we cannot read this book. Either is the most sophisticated and pointless hoax ever created, a 600-year-old practical joke with no punchline, or contains something real, something someone, somewhere at some point, thought was worth writing down, something that mattered enough to protect, and that has, against all odds, stayed protected. The Voynich Manuscript has outlasted the civilization that produced it. It has outlasted every expert who attacked it. It sits in its vault at Yale, page after page of graceful alien text, waiting for someone smart enough to finally ask the right question. What if that person is alive right now? What if it's you? If this kind of mystery keeps you up at night the way it keeps me up, the codes, the lost histories, the things humanity buried that refuse to stay buried, you're in exactly the right place. WonderStream is where we go deep on the stories that don't fit neatly into textbooks. Subscribe to the WonderStream channel, turn on notifications, and come back next week, because we're just getting started.